It's been a hot summer, and while that might be uncomfortable in the big picture of the Earth's climate, extreme heat and drought is a global concern. But in some places, people aren't just talking about the weather, they're doing something about it. And one of those places is in St. Louis.
I'm Ruth Ezell at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. Its mission is to improve the human condition through plant science. That is especially important at a time when crops are becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather patterns. The work of one researcher aims to boost the resiliency of critical crops under those conditions.
This is the what you call the panicle, or the head covered in grain.
Dr. Todd Mockler and his research team are studying the properties of sorghum. The cereal grain is, to say the least, diverse.
They're looking at thousands of different lines that are genetic, they're all genetically different. And so we're trying to understand the genes that control traits like yield, for example. I'm particularly interested in understanding the genes and the gene networks that make one variety of sorghum or one variety of corn more drought tolerant than another, or drought resistant.
Drought resistance is a big issue in the continent of Africa, where sorghum originated and where millions of farmers and their families rely on it for their very survival. Dr. Mockler travels to sub-Saharan Africa as part of his research to identify genes and pathways responsible for sorghum's hardiness in spite of poor soil and semi-arid conditions.
I usually, when I'm in, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's a dose of reality. You know, like, we're very privileged here. Agriculture in the West is extremely well developed and high tech, and a lot of the world, probably the majority of the world, don't benefit from those kind of technologies or get to take advantage of it.
Corn, which is widely grown in the Americas, is genetically similar to sorghum. So Dr. Mockler is hopeful results of his research can eventually be applied to those crops. Other grains may benefit too.
And what we have here, we have about 1,000 different varieties of pearl millet. They're mostly from Africa, so sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa. They're phenotypically very diverse. And so we're trying to understand what makes all these lines different, what makes one line maybe better for a particular trait than another, or worse.
As the world population grows and climate patterns change, Dr. Mockler and his colleagues hope their research leads to higher crop yields for both food and biofuel.
For example, liquid fuels for vehicles. So it could be ethanol or some future generation biofuel that could just go in the tank in a car. But there are other aspects of bioenergy. So you could burn the biomass, for example, and make electricity. There are other components. Humans have been breeding crops for thousands of years, and they've always had to deal with the changing climate. What the real challenge that we're facing now is the accelerated pace of climate change.